Oseo.
Oseo.
Cherokee greeting. Wave the great feather. Oh, I'm Carlos Warner. I am a portrait of the artist who has a muse. And she said to me, brush and color and I will bloom. So, my art is the expression of her. Further, my Cherokee grandmother, beloved woman, Ima Reed Warner, she believed in me from the beginning. And our clan's mother, Agisik Waya, the great loving she-wolf. And two women who have supported this artist and his art all along is Claudia Okwa and Vivian Olds. So this you can see, I can say that in this way my art has been her story. And so her story is what I'm celebrating today. March is Women's History Month. And just this past week, Tuesday especially, was designated as International Women's Day. And actually I went around to the stores I go to, and each of the women that I knew there, I asked them, I told them it was International Women's Day, and they all, each one seemed to know, and that's why I was saying, first was the Chinese woman, and she said, and I said, are you an international woman? And she said, I am. And I said, congratulations. And next I went to another store with a Filipino woman and asked her the same question. And I said, are you an international woman? And she said, I am. And I said, congratulations. And then the next was an Arab woman, and the next was a Mexican woman. So that's the way that I brought out, and they all seemed to know it was International Women's Day. So that's pretty much, what I'm starting off with. And right away, with a little news article from Indian Country Today, and that this is actually what had happened on Tuesday. The United States, seeks First Nations help with public lands. This comes from Albuquerque, New Mexico. National Park Service Director Chuck Sams said on Tuesday that he and other officials are committed to boosting the role of Native Americans can play in managing the public lands around the U.S. He said that integrating indigenous knowledge into management plans and recognizing that federal lands once belonged to the First Nations. Chuck Sams, who is a Walla Walla of the citizen of the Confederated Nations of the Umatilla Reservation, is the first Native American to lead the Park Service. He said education will be a key part of seeing changes. Quote, much of this has been missing from our history books, that understanding First Nations are sovereign, and the government has an obligation to ensure that First Nations voices are heard. There are currently 4 national parks for the First Nations to share in co-management. There's Canyon de Chelly Monument, and that's in Arizona, and Glacier Bay Park in Alaska, and Great Portage National Monument within the reservation of Minnesota, and Big Cypress National Preserve in Florida. So you can say all that. What could be a better avenue of restorative justice than giving First Nations the opportunity to participate in the management of the lands that their ancestors were removed from? He told the congressional panel about the philosophy of long-term planning that is central to our Native American nations. He said it centers on what will be in the best interest of people 7 generations from now. So again, that happened on Tuesday. Now I have another one This is articles sent to me by Dr. Catherine Harrison, and so I'm going to read this one. This one is titled, Scotland Apologizes for Witchcraft Persecution. The persecution that began in the 1500s and lasted for 200 years, where over 4,000 people were accused of witchcraft. They were women. They were arrested, tortured, and coerced into false confessions. Most of these accused were executed. The United States, which has its own shameful history of the witch trials in Salem, Massachusetts, had already given official exonerations and victim memorials. However, the government of Scotland had never apologized for the atrocities committed against its citizens. This all changed on Tuesday, again, that is International Women's Day, when Nicola Sturgeon, the First Minister of Scotland, addressed Parliament and apologized for that persecution. Quote, "It was an injustice on a colossal scale." And this was part of a speech that he called on the leaders of Scotland and the public to combat modern-day misogyny. At a time when women were not even allowed to speak as witnesses in a courtroom, they were accused and killed because they were poor, because they were different, vulnerable, or just because they were women. As First Minister, on behalf of the Scottish Government, I'm choosing to acknowledge that egregious historic injustice and extend a formal, posthumous apology to all of those accused, convicted, or vilified under the Witchcraft Act of 1563. That law, which had been passed by the Scottish Parliament and made witchcraft or consulting with witches a capital offense, enabled the execution of over 2,500 people, according to, quote, the Witches of Scotland, an organization that has been lobbying Parliament to apologize for these atrocities and to build a memorial to commemorate the victims. Now you might recognize some of the tone of this, the tenor of this, in very recent attempts by southern states to have anti-abortion legislation that sounds very similar to what I just read you. So to carry out this celebration, I'm going to start off with this piece up here, this painting. Now this is a painting that I have made from a petroglyph. I made the painting quite a few years ago, and I'd seen the petroglyph even longer ago than that. It's a petroglyph that is in New Mexico. I guess you'd say the western part of New Mexico toward Arizona. At the time, there was nothing around there. It was a very broad wash, is what I would call. There seemed to be some ruins of an adobe building up over there on the rise, but that was all. And that I recognize this piece. I have had a long association in Navajo, and I recognize what this is. So eventually I got around to making this painting of it 12 years ago. And what it is, it's about changing woman. Now, changing woman is the what the version of Guadalupe is to Mexico. Changing woman, Atzanaidlihe, is to Turtle Island. And to definitely think about something about her, changing woman is woman with a Sphinx-like quality. No matter how much we know about her, the total is a great question mark. She is the mystery of reproduction, of life springing from nothing, of the last hope of our moving world, a riddle perpetually solved and perennially springing up anew. Here the one who is named Changing Woman is pretty close to the real names of every girl. So to give you an idea of like what's going on here, very first of all, what's really amazing me is this part of the petroglyph. The only thing I've added to it are the colors. I intuited the colors, but I didn't add anything else in the petroglyph. So if you look down here at this, this is the mountain where she is born. And it's called Chuli Mountain, and Chuli means spruce. But it also means Chulala, meaning in the beginning, where it started. And so that's what's being pictured up here in the petroglyph. There was a disturbance going on, you know, storm and like that going on over the mountain. And here, last week, we looked at the lizard, and here's a lizard. This is either the descendant of the ancient spiny lizard, or right now it's called the horned lizard, like that. And Navajos call him Rocky Shirt. So Rocky Shirt, he sees that, you know, there's this disturbance going on the mountain, and eventually he manages to get up there like that. So he's very instrumental in the very beginning of this birth coming to life of changing woman. So that's what's being depicted here. Then we go over here, this first figure. This is, the turquoise baby. So this turquoise baby, like turquoise in Navajo, is, you know, really sacred. And up here, this is to signify that she was known as White Bead Girl. So that's where we begin with this. And then here, this is the life cycle. This is the life cycle of woman. And here, this is her womanhood. This is like this. What she's wearing is a old style woven garment for women. It was called bil. It was woven of wool. And this signa on here is actually the symbol for winter thunder. Would say this is the time of the year that this is going on. And up here, her head is an insect. You've got little antlers here. And in the Navajo, the insects appear in the third world. And in the third world, that's when all this is beginning to manifest. And here, most interestingly, here in her neck or her throat, that this symbol means voice. And the voice is the cicada. We learn, you know, very, very recent from David Haskell on the film we saw of Sound, you know, that the grasshoppers and the cicada and the crickets are like the first sounds, you know, that have some communication to them. So that's why she's given this. So all this is saying, you know, she is, you know, appearing in the third world. And here, what she's holding in her hand, this is called the frond of life, and it's a spruce branch here. And the red pieces here, this is the flesh and blood of rainbow that's been blown there by winter thunder. And here she's wearing this sash, is what we call it, and you see these balls on the end of it. These are her handmaidens. They're called Alke Neke, meaning one follow the other. They're really the goddess of sunrise and the goddess of sunset. And then in the story, she's in Arizona, you know, where actually in New Mexico, but she decides that, you know, she wants to move. So coming from her are these are snakes. She has pet snakes, and these called a traveling sign. That's what this means. And where she's traveling over to Santa Cruz Island. Santa Cruz Island off of Ventura there. And here, the third here, this is woman as a matron. And this garment should be a little bit up higher, variegated, like an abalone. So she's come to a fulfillment, and this here, this is the island, Santa Cruz. It's called, you know, the island of white shell, because it has 4 openings. And here are the 3 snakes that have arrived at the island. And then down here, very importantly, this is Grasshopper Girl. And that Grasshopper Girl is the parthenogenic factor. She's the double of changing woman. She is the germinator. So she is what makes female female. So all of that is here in this. And this is, again, I did this watercolor from sort of the southwest of the mountain, looking sort of northly eastward, like that. So I'm very happy with that part there. Next, we're going to think about women, important women here in this. And to start off with, I'm going to read a poem here. If I get this out. This is Claudia Pocock's book, very recently published, Mangoes Without Borders. And she has her photo on the back here, like that. And this is a wonderful book. And to begin this next little section, this poem suits this. This is called Life, Love, Liberty, and the Law for Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, 1933 to 2020. She opened the door. She, like a she-bear that roams from dream to dream, she embraced the Constitution, tracking an inner calling to allow for justice to heal the split of inequality. There was no road. Like a mushroom pushing up concrete, she kept a strong will and a soft front, knowing that women belong in all places where decisions are made, at times breaking through a forest of fire. She took it. Like our one star, she shed light on balance. Like our one moon, we traveled with her, reflecting upon a moral choice. Like a true compass, she pointed the way. Thank you, Claudia. Now this is an array of my shield covers. Wahashanga Ogi is what I call them, my shield covers. So let me just start with this here. This is the shield cover for Earth Woman. I've derived it from the Navajo image for Earth Woman. There are the plants around her navel and the night. So that's what we're going to start with. Here we'll recognize who this is. This is Deb Haaland, first Native American woman to be the Secretary of Interior. So I very much celebrate her. And over here, in this one, I mentioned this last week, this is Biden's nominee for the Supreme Court, Ketanji Jackson, like that. Now, she has said, Ms. Jackson has said herself, that she stems from her lineage ancestors who suffered in bondage, during the era called slavocracy in the United States up into towards the end of the 19th century, what the Civil War put an end to, and to see, how that she has, brought herself up to this wonderful, wonderful position here. And down below her, this is Kimberly Tehe, and she is the Cherokee representative delegate to the House of Representatives. And so each of these women that I'm extolling here are representative of other women who are coming up into the government. And here very recently, this is Rosalind Tsao, and she's the Biden nominee for the health service. We're looking for it. If confirmed by the Senate, she will serve and manage the Indian Health Services Administration of health care programs and services. That budget is $7.5 billion and has 15,000 employees. It provides health care to approximately 2.5 million Native Americans across the country, and it is part of the Department of Health and Human Services. She brings 40 years of service to the Indian health system, and most recently on the Navajo Nation. She has a Bachelor of Arts in Interdisciplinary Studies from Maryland Mayhurst University in Oregon, and a Master's in Organizational Management from the University of Phoenix in Portland. So, very, very important here. And while we're down here, you can just take a look here. This is my Navajo rendering of Grasshopper Girl. So, of course, to say that she's important is an understatement, because without her, we don't have any women. So, and that I wanted to make representatives of each of these. This one here, this one I'm putting in as a figure for changing woman. In the Navajo, there are no figures of changing woman that are supposed to be rendered, you know. So this is just what I am putting here for that. Here below her, this particular rock here, this is called Thun Ting Inishta, meaning this is a puberty spirit stone or fertility stone. When a young woman in her initiation to womanhood, Kinalda in Navajo, she's laying in they make a shallow pit in the ground and they warm it up with warm rocks, and she lays, there in this very shallow depression in the earth, and they put this on her very lower abdomen, and this is, the idea is that it's going to facilitate her birth giving. So I think that that's very important to have here. If I go over here, this image I have here is meaning, as they call Latina. Latina, especially the woman of Mexico. Woman of Mexico is a warm blend of the Mediterranean and the Caribbean. All of those cultures and people have come into her in Mexico from the Atlantic side, and then from the Pacific side, Filipinos and Chinese, and particularly Chinese. Chinese were carrying on a trade with Mexico in the 14th century. In the 14th century, the Ming dynasty of China had built a huge ocean-going fleet of ships, and what Mexico was exporting was tobacco through China that allowed those old Chinese guys to smoke the, Mexican tobacco in their pipes. So the Chinese are very much a part of the Mexicana woman. So as I was saying, it's important that to see all that the Latina or Mexican woman embodies. Very important. Now we'll go over here to this one. I put a light on her this time. This way you can see, we would say the black woman or the African woman. Now, as if there was some kind of a consensus that African people in this country have all come from the time that they were held in bondage, but that's not really accurate, although there was a very bad period there. But people from Africa have been in this country for a very, very long time, and from different parts of Africa. And people from Africa continue even long past the end of that slaveocracy period. Black people from Ethiopia and Sudan and other African countries continue to immigrate here to Turtle Island So it's very important to see her. I selected this particular figure to represent this woman, the African woman of Native America and womanhood, because she looks so elegant here. And then I want to go over here. This is to represent the European woman. The European woman also suffered very greatly under that kind of Christian fundamentalism. I should say that the women that are being called witches are herbalists. And so if we can go up here and look at this, I have this pottery of sage, fresh sage, to represent, the herbs and the herbology that women still everywhere have. My grandmother had that kind of knowledge, and that this figure here is to represent, the European woman and European American woman also. And this little figure here is Kumeyaay. Kumeyaay is whose land this is, where we are here in San Diego, and this is a Kumeyaay doll, and she's dressed in the old way they used to dress, with a bark dress and a woven hat. And then this figure here that I have, February was the time of the hatching of eagles, Atsabias. And what's really, really coinciding with this is that in Big Bear Valley, sort of, or you say east of LA, you could say, they've been monitoring, they have a monitor camera on a nest of these bald eagles. So there have been 2 bald eagles that are right now in the nest. That's what he's representing here. And he's also in this basket. This basket is from Baja, Seri, and it's made of a wood of a tree that only grows in Baja. So definitely want to have that in here. But what I'm looking at is how the birth and growing, I would say, and feeding of these fledglets coincides with all that's happening with woman here in this time. And if we can go over here to my drawing here, I very much like this drawing because I'm here really expressing the sacredness and radiance of her. Sacredness of woman is who I mean this to be. Now I have a piece from the Gathering of Spirit, the writings of North American Native women. And this is by Paula Gunn Allen. And this is Bird Woman. Bird Woman, they call me, for I am like the wind. I am legend. I am history. I come and go. My tracks are washed away in certain places. I am chief woman. I brought the Sundance to my people. I am grandmother of the sun. I am the one who wanders, the one who speaks, the one who watches, the one who does not wait, the one who teaches, the one who goes to sea, the one who wears a silver medallion. I am the one who holds my son close within my arms, the one who marries, the one who is enslaved, the one who is beaten, the one who weeps, the one who knows the way, who beckons, who knows the wilderness. I am the woman who knows the past and where the wild food waits to be drawn from the mother's breast. I am the one who meets, the one who runs away. I am slave woman, lost woman, grass woman, bird woman. I am wind water woman and white water woman, and I come and go as I please. And the club-footed man who shelters me is the great man, is my son. I am many-tongue woman, sacred wind woman, bird woman. I am mountain pass and river woman. I am free. I know many places, many things. I know enough to hear the voice in the running water of the creek, in the wind, in the sweet, tiny flowers. I am bird woman. So I've got the little PS here we've been doing. This is the book that has me, for one, as its main subject, A Journey Through the Seasons, and it is for exactly the past year. I started this, the photos of my displays, as we're referring to them here, and poems, various, but most of them are Mary Oliver's poem. It also has, a couple of photos of me. There's the one on the back of yours truly. And also that these talks, this is available through Amazon Books. So it's $10 through Amazon. And also to look up any of these talks, like this one today, you go to Tim Britton YouTube and look for the most recent talk. Timothy Britton is B-R-I-T-T-A-I-N, Britton, in that way. So this is the way that today I'm celebrating Women's Herstory month of March, and may she rise.